Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining me. I'm Israeli Government Spokesperson Raquela Karamson, and today is May 2nd, day 209 of the October 7th war. At the top of our priorities, bring our hostages home to their families. 133 of our citizens, as well as citizens of the US, the UK, Germany, and 20 other nationalities, have never once been visited by the Red Cross, and in 7 months of Hamas captivity, we have never been informed as to their conditions. This is a clear and daily war crime, and the entire international community, as well as the media, have a duty to demand the unconditional release of these innocent men, women, and children as young as 1 year old. Turning now to the north, yesterday in response to Hezbollah rocket fire, IAF jets targeted Hezbollah military sites in Atta, Shabed, and Marin in southern Lebanon. Iranian-backed Hezbollah's actions violate UN Resolution 1701, a resolution that they have never complied with. And since October 7th, their attacks have displaced over 60,000 Israeli citizens and endangered civilians in northern Lebanon. Turning now to Gaza, over the last day, our fighter jets targeted armed terrorists and their operational terror tunnels. And now to COGAT, which of course coordinates the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza. The amount of humanitarian aid going into Gaza has significantly increased and continues to increase. Yesterday, U.S. Secretary of State Blinken saw for himself during his visit with Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant at the Karam Shalom crossing. Yesterday, 406 humanitarian aid trucks went into Gaza. 88 trucks were transferred to northern Gaza, 56 by the private sector, 2 by the World Health Organization, 30 through the new northern crossing, 76 via the Jordanian route, and 173 pallets were airdropped over northern Gaza, containing tens of thousands of meals. Secretary Blinken voiced his appreciation for Israel's humanitarian efforts. Yesterday, for the first time since the October 7th attack, when Hamas attacked it, the northern Erez crossing opened for aid entry. Previously a civilian crossing, IDF construction now allows humanitarian aid to pass through with inspection. The issue has never been getting aid into Gaza, but getting aid around Gaza before it is stolen by Hamas. So more food and more aid enters Gaza every day. In quantities, 80% more food is going in compared to what was imported to Gaza before October 7th. More than 26,000 trucks of aid have gone into Gaza. That's more than 480,000 tons of food, water, medical supplies without limit, and shelter. The humanitarian aid arrives in Gaza by sea, by air, and by land. And now on anti-Semitism on the U.S. campuses, the Prime Minister met at his office in Jerusalem with Yeshiva University President Rabbi Dr. Ari Berman. They discussed at length ways to fight the wave of anti-Semitism on U.S. campuses. The Prime Minister praised Dr. Berman's initiative for U.S. university heads to participate in the March of the Living in Poland, in which they would explore the remnants of the Holocaust. That brings me now to the end of today's briefing. I would now be happy to take your questions. Please do put your questions in the chat along with your news outlet. Thank you so much.
Thank you. First question from Joel Pollack at Breitbart News. Is Israel aware that under the terms of the proposed hostage deal, as reported, the impression is created that Israel has capitulated to Hamas's demands and that Israel will in fact have lost the war to the terrorist group, allowing it to survive and return throughout Gaza?
Thank you for the question. As we've stated from the beginning, our war goals remain the same, and that is to return our hostages home and to make sure that Hamas never again can pose a threat to us from Gaza. And that includes that Hamas is not in any way in power in Gaza or in any way able to continue to grow or continue to replenish their terror army. You know, with these negotiations, the only thing preventing a hostage deal is Hamas. Israel has come again and again to the negotiating table and has made very difficult concessions on our end to bring our people home. Hamas only hardens its conditions and entrenches itself in its own reasonable demands. So again, the only thing preventing a hostage deal at any of these negotiation tables is Hamas. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Question from Frank Gardner at the BBC. Could you give us some idea of timing for the planned Rafa assault?
As the Prime Minister has stated, the operation in Rafa is required to eliminate the terror threat by Hamas, and we are in preparations to do that, to enter Gaza. As we've conducted ourselves throughout this war, the IDF has very methodically conducted this war with a lot of concern to the humanitarian cost, to the civilians in the area. And that is the same thing that we're going to do here in Rafa. The civilian population in the area is the focus here at the beginning of this operation, and we're going to be doing everything we can to move them out of harm's way before then moving into Rafa and destroying the remaining Hamas battalions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question from Lauren Fryer at NPR. Does the Israeli cabinet plan to vote tonight on whether to take Al Jazeera off air inside Israel?
Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. I think we will know later tonight after the meeting. I don't at this time have anything to add.
Thank you. Further question from Laura Frey at NPR. The UN says there are reports of canned food delivered to Gaza being booby-trapped with munitions. A 14-year-old boy lost his limbs when one exploded. Does Israeli government have any comment on this?
Thank you for the question. As I said, Israel facilitates the entry of the aid into Gaza, so the entry of the trucks. What happens once the trucks enter Gaza, how they're distributed, whether they're stolen, whether the aid is messed with in any sort of way, that happens once it enters Gaza. What we know about is inspection and entry into Gaza. That's what we're responsible for, and that's what we've been doing. So any in regard to this, I think you'd have to address that question to authorities in Gaza. Thank you.
Question from Jim Williams at Zenga International News Service, Washington, D.C. Would you please clear up the miscommunication that the U.S. is against Israel going into Rafah? White House security spokesperson John Kirby said that the U.S. wants to see the battle plans before they are put into place, so the largest of civilians can be protected. So is it correct to say that Israel will discuss their battle plans with the US before the war plans are carried out in Rafah?
Thank you for the question. As we all know, yesterday the Prime Minister met with Secretary Blinken, and the two met for over an hour. And Secretary Blinken then additionally met with other members of the War Cabinet. So there is no daylight between Washington and Israel on our plans. We are in constant communication with them, and as we move forward with these plans. And, I think the United States understands very much, and we are on the same page in terms of the war goals, which is to return our hostages from Hamas and to eliminate Hamas and to make sure that they are never again able to pose a threat to us. So we both Israel and the United States agree on that, on our war goals. And like I said, there's no daylight between us. We share everything that is necessary ahead of this operation. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last question.
Thank you so much. Join us again next week.
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Dejobnik signing off.